Okay, part 4 for chapter 1. Our book gives us an example of visual culture, and it's going to break it down into 3 categories. Now, in the past, we didn't have so much visual stimulus, such as movies and television, not even the radio, which isn't visual, but um, a lot of things were, in terms of visual art, were a little bit more important. So people knew about this, cultural things a little bit more. Now we're kind of having to go out of our way to look at fine art. Um, but at any rate, visual culture is breaking, our author is really breaking it down this way: fine art, popular culture, and craft. And you're very familiar with popular culture, whether you know it or not. But let's get into fine art first. Fine art is a category of objects considered to be among the highest cultural achievement for humans. Okay, so these are all like our Leonardo da Vinci's and our sculptures and our Renaissance, our classic Greece, and even now, like a lot of the fine art that's being made now. But they're made with the goal or thoughtfulness of permanence to some degree, some impermanence as well. But the idea that the artist is really in tune with himself and finding his own expression. Um, so right now we're in this area in the world. We're in this place with the fine art world. It includes a lot of things. Also, computer art down at the bottom of this list. But you probably have seen photographs that were fine art, like you think of Ansel Adams, you think about Dorothea Lange, that kind of thing. Even though her stuff didn't start out as fine art, it became that. Certain films are fine art. Certain films are popular culture. There's a distinction there. Prints, installation, performance, video, and computer art. Now, video art is very different than videos that we've seen. Okay. Um, there's also street art, and that's something that is sometimes in the category of fine art, sometimes it is in the category of popular art. So that's a little bit confusing, and street art's designations really kind of changed a little bit in the last 15, 20 years. So for some places, it's a really potent force, and it's commissioned. You've seen murals, I'm sure. There's a lot of murals that are painted with public art funding and approval, and the artist asks, what are we trying to represent? Like you might do a historic figure, Martin Luther King or someone who you want to put on the side of a building. But in this case, what we're looking at is this rooster that an artist painted on the side of the building with no name. There's even kind of like a barbecue sitting right there, which is kind of interesting. But this is in Puerto Rico, and this artist does a lot of interesting animals, just monochromatic, one color, like a dark blue black. And it sort of looks like a printmaking piece, but it's hand done as far as I know. But that's unsanctioned graffiti and painting. Also, fine art, there's a kind of a fuzzy area when we talk about other cultures, because these objects were really meant for performing a ritual. They're for like the shaman or the tribal leader would be wearing these for a specific ritual purpose, like feast day, perhaps, or healing, or something like that. So for us to put it into a museum, that sort of shifts the context and the meaning of it, and we appreciate it for the beauty and the object and all of the craftsmanship and the different objects on there and the texture and that kind of thing. But really, this has some potency and some power. And this is true of a lot of native cultures in the U.S. as well, where we're taking these objects and we revere them because they're pretty. So that's been changing quite a bit. A lot of objects are getting returned to native peoples, which is great. And the context for the pieces has started to change even within the museum's culture. Okay, so inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the time that a lot of these pieces were collected, we were still thinking about the art object and how do we display the art object. Now, most of, if not all of what you're looking at here probably had very potent ritual meaning, and we've displaced it. And again, it's argued that this is a really negative thing, But in a lot of ways, it's creating a situation where we're able to see this work that we would normally get to see. For one thing, it's far away. Oceania is sort of the Philippines and uh, all through Tahiti and all the regions, Samoa and down, through the Pacific Islands. And it's far, but also we wouldn't be in on the ceremony, so we wouldn't see a lot of this work. So, good upside and bad, up and down on that controversy. Popular culture, we have a lot of popular culture: comics, television shows, advertising, folk art, tattoos, customized cars, graffiti, and so on. A lot of this, you may be aware, is custom culture with a K, or pop surrealism. I'm trying to think of all the different terms. There's a lot of kind of like rabbits out there with bloody eyes, or drip paintings, or things that have skull imagery. And not to say anything that those couldn't be fine art, but quite often right now you see a lot of popular art in this type of work. And we're going to look at an example. Um, this is actually the reason this is popular art. It's a print, yeah, but it's also meant to be an advertisement in this particular case. So this originally was a, um, a printed sheet in 1907, and I've actually seen this in person at the University of New Mexico Art Museum. It's a great place to go, and you can ask to see this. You can ask to see many things back in the collection that are not framed and not put out on a regular basis, because it's kind of a small museum, but they have a huge printmaking collection that you can look at. But popular art we think of as more accessible, it's inexpensive, these were plastered all over the place originally, entertaining, commercial, political, naive, and colorful. So we're kind of taking these different, these faces that we're familiar with in terms of Day of the Dead, or putting somebody in the skeletized way in these skulls, and it's a political call to action here. Another kitschy piece that we have by Murakami, who is actually huge at this point, and this is a really interesting juxtaposition of a bright plastic object right here in the Palace of Versailles, which is kind of funny in its own way. But he is mimicking and commenting on self-conscious consumerism. Bright colors, candy, toys, um, the plastic nature of some of the world that we look at. But you could put him in the category of kitsch, definitely, if you wish to. He is a fine artist working um, in a popular way. He's kind of complicated, and he's crossing a lot of barriers here. This is a manga sculpture in the Venus drawing room. Okay, last part about kitsch, and then we're going to do the last segment after this. So kitschy stuff is stuff that it's what we call pandering. It's trying to connect to the emotional appeal that we know somebody's going to like it. Some kid is going to love that there's an astronaut there, right? And pandas, everybody loves pandas, and butterflies, and so on. So we're going to make all these things large and colorful and fun, and the audience is going to respond to it. So that's the difference, or that's the breaking point between fine art and kitsch, is that you're making it so that you're sure, or at least you have a pretty good possibility that the general public will like it, and that's what you're going for. Okay.